A lot of video games have a pause feature. The main goal of pausing is to suspend gameplay until the player either unpauses or decides to save and quit. Mario Sunshine's pause menu fulfills this goal with flying colors, but it turns out there's also a side effect of completely altering Mario's physical interaction with objects. Whoops, Nintendo? Much? Alright, so it's not nearly as egregious as it sounds, but it's an interesting oversight regardless. Quick shout out to Noki for helping me to understand this stuff. If there's anyone I'd trust more than myself with obscure SMS knowledge, it's probably him. There's a couple useful clips in Delfino Plaza that involve running down a sloped surface and throwing a fruit. For now, let's focus on the Chuckster Shine building clip. If you're speedrunning on the non-Japanese version, this shine actually gives you a slight advantage. Instead of messing around with spraying a banana out of a tree, you can simply use this papaya, which is one of many fruits that's missing in the Japanese version. That's weird. Oh right, I forgot to pause my game first. Wonderful. Now, if you think that having to pause the game for this papaya clip to work is strange, that's because it is. But there's at least a solid explanation for this. Mario Sunshine, much like some other GameCube classics, had a pretty rushed development.
Oh no!
In the interest of saving time, it borrowed pretty heavily from its predecessor, Mario 64. It may not have kicking or that epic long jump, but a surprising amount of the underlying physics are exactly the same. One of these physics quirks that carried over is that Mario's collision is checked 4 times every frame. These are known as either quarter steps or quarter frames, and Bismuth explains it best in his Mario 64 Task Explained video.
As Mario is moving, the game checks if there's an obstacle on each quarter step of his movement. As long as nothing is in the way, Mario will keep being moved on each quarter step. However, if he's about to move into a ceiling, the quarter step will be cancelled and he will stay in place.
While the game's running physics calculations 120 times a second, it can only read your inputs 30 times a second once at the beginning of each frame. Every time you jump, that jump will always happen at the beginning of a full frame. Likewise, every time you throw a fruit, it'll always be thrown at the beginning of a full frame. If SMS were a flawlessly programmed game, every fruit throw animation should look like this. Or like this. So how come sometimes it looks more like this? It's subtle, but notice how the animation suddenly has this weird recoil to it. When throwing a fruit, there's an instantaneous moment where Mario is interacting with the fruit on one of the 4 possible quarter frames. Long story short, whether there's visible recoil or not depends on which quarter frame this interaction's happening on. And what exactly can change this quarter frame? You might have guessed it, pausing the game. You may be wondering how people ever realized that pausing is scupped in the first place. I'll share a brief piece of history on that because, after all, I am the OG Summoning Salt ripoff guy. Sometime in early January 2017, Zapiku Kirby used a coconut to discover a clip known as Serena Whenever, because let's be honest, he's discovered almost everything. A few days later, Sighted Williams was messing around with trying to clip using a pineapple. See, pineapples would be convenient because of how close they are to the Serena Beach entrance. After having no luck with his pineapple setup, he went AFK to use the restroom. Or rather, the washroom, since they call it that in Canada apparently. The main takeaway here is that Sid paused his game prior to going AFK, and wouldn't you know it, he got the setup to work almost immediately after coming back. Sid has previously stated that the key to discovering things in games is noticing that something is different. When you play a game for hundreds of hours, it's very easy to gloss over most everything. He eventually put 2 and 2 together that pausing the game was causing Mario to suddenly have a pushback animation when throwing pineapples. Weird game. Shortly after this discovery, he applied this knowledge to making the Chuckster Shine building clip work with papaya. This would go on to be called Keikona clip because of its version-specific utility. Yes, it also works in the PAL version, but come on. That concludes our history lesson, now let's get back into the nitty-gritty. I'm gonna spawn into Delfino Plaza with a totally clean pausing slate and grab a banana. Initially, Mario has recoil. After 1 pause, recoil again. 2 pauses later, still getting recoil. After a 3rd pause, however, the recoil is mysteriously missing. 4 pauses should be the same as 0 pauses since that would recycle back to the first quarter frame we tested, and sure enough, recoil's back. So, all in all, there's 3 possible quarter frames where Mario gets pushed back when throwing a banana. The pattern is different among different types of fruit. And barrels. This also factors into the Japanese exclusive floating fruit glitch. From the get-go, this glitch will work with every fruit except for papaya. and obviously durians. Which is kinda strange that pineapple works even though it also doesn't have any recoil prior to pausing. Either way, people used to think that papaya simply didn't work, but after pausing once, it works after all. Peppers are an unusual case because it's impossible to not get recoil. However, there is still a quarter frame where the floating fruit glitch doesn't work. I have no idea why. But let's not forget that the craziest thing about peppers is that you can give Mario a super mustache. Now we can move on to Yoshi. In general, when you jump out of the sewers while riding Yoshi, you'll actually go higher than if you jumped out as solo Mario. In the current hoverless any % routes, people do some Y-turn wall kick shenanigans to climb the shine gates. In the old route, however, people would use a sewer jump after unlocking Yoshi in Delfino Plaza. I was doing hoverless speedruns while this older route was in use, and this segment was always an enigma to me. It seems simple, right? Just unlock Yoshi and do the manhole jump. But there's a slight problem.
Short, I gotta pause.
It turns out that Yoshi jumping from this particular manhole is heavily affected by pausing. We didn't know much back in 2018, but we at least knew that pausing the game twice made this jump 100% consistent. Now that's pretty strange. According to Noki Doki, and assuming you're not pausing, you'll always reach a manhole cover on the same quarter of a frame. By pausing, you can change whether or not the game can see you touch the cover on that quarter frame. The same behavior can be seen whenever Mario clips back in bounds from inside an object. No matter how high you jump, Mario will end up snapping to the top of a surface. Alright, cool, so pausing fixes it. But this didn't exactly sit well with me for doing speedruns. Zapiku formerly had the hoverless record and he was somehow able to get the manhole jump without pausing a single time. There's kind of a language barrier between us, so sadly there wasn't an easy way to ask him how he did this, and so I set off to figure it out by myself. Inevitably, I couldn't figure it out, but after giving it some time, Sam Gaudreau actually solved the issue. It all depends on the way that you initially mount Yoshi while unlocking him. Landing on Yoshi vertically has the exact same effect as pausing a single time, advancing the quarter frame by 1. Though mounting Yoshi horizontally via diving advances 2 quarter frames, which has the same effect as pausing twice. In other words, unlocking Yoshi a specific way mitigates the 2 pause requirement. The reason this happens is because of the save text box, which effectively pauses the game while it's active. In a roundabout way, pausing is still involved, just not by using the start button. The game pauses on the quarter frame that you land on Yoshi, but once again, much like with jumping, you can only input to close the text box at the start of a full frame. It's this discrepancy that ultimately shifts the collision check. It's worth noting that the blue coin text boxes and pausing via the Z menu seem to have no effect on quarter frames. So yeah, pausing is fucked up. Hopefully this video helps to make some sense of it. Hey guys, I just wanted to have a moment of realness to cap off the heavily scripted version of me you're probably used to hearing. The stuff in this video was actually originally going to be a footnote in a much larger SMS related video I'm currently scripting. I'm not going to go into too much detail on that, but just know it's going to have a lot more random little niche tidbits about the game in it, so hopefully it should be good. This can also kind of serve as a Pseudo tutorial to anyone trying to learn some fruit clips or maybe the hoverless category. But with that being said, I hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching. Peace.